So here with Roger Mortimer. If you haven't heard of him by name, but you're in the drone business, you've definitely heard of his company, AuHu Drone Repair. Probably the largest or most well-known drone repair brand, maybe beyond the United States, but I would say in the United States. Would you say that's true? Or
at least in the top 3.
Yeah, I would definitely say the same. One less competitor that was at least local to us, and Rob Schwartz with Thunder Drones. I know, at least regionally speaking, he was the kind of go-to, but I've even seen, in our local Georgia Drone Pilots Facebook group, which I'm sure you're actually part of as well. But, it's like, where do we send our drones to? And now that we can't send them back to DJI, Roger, AuHu Drone Repair. And so I'm sure you've seen that from, far stretches all across the U.S. Now, not just Georgia. So can you talk a little bit about that, like what you've seen since, DJI hasn't totally been, or Chinese drones haven't been totally outright banned, but just the logistics of getting drones back to them for repair, and they're not offering the care refresh plans. And
yeah. Most definitely. There's a lot of things to talk about within that. On the repair side of things, I definitely think we're probably within one of the top 3 in the country. We want to be number 1. We might be there, but I don't want to.
Just keeping track, right?
I won't know.
Yeah.
But it's been just constant, slowly trying to improve ourselves, every day. But across the United States, we have customers. We have customers that shipped in from every single state within the United States. We have had a couple international customers, but we primarily just try to stay local for the most part. But I know with DJI and all their customs issues, and they've kind of actually really slowed down their repair facilities that they have. I think the one in California and the one in Texas. We've had a huge influx in repairs. So we've been structuring ourselves to be able to take on all of those repairs. We have about 10 repair techs in total right now, and probably looking to add on a couple, one to two in the next month or so.
So I get called a young guy in the drone business, right? And, Roger takes that to another level. So I'm a boomer, at 28 years old, and Roger here is 24 years old, right? And I don't know how much you're wanting or willing to get into it, but you've done really well for yourself running AuHu Drone Repair, and very clearly showing that there's a need for repair services, in the United States that by and large isn't otherwise being met. So can you talk a little bit about you starting AuHu Drone Repair, and again, as much tangibly speaking, especially the big revenue numbers everyone wants to hear about, can you talk about, what that was like from where you started and to, how many years you've been in business and where you're at today?
Yeah, most definitely. So I didn't officially start AuHu Drone Repair. I actually purchased the business in March of 21. I worked for the previous owner for about a year's time, and he wanted to go and retire and move to Texas, and we were able to work out a deal. From there, for about 30 times growth from the start. What the business did in its last year of the previous owner is a bad month for us now.
That's awesome.
I never thought it could ever get this big, but repairs isn't our actually main bread and butter. We do a lot on the sales side of things. Sales make up more than the repairs, but this year's definitely the repairs is going to have a huge increase, and we've been really focusing on the repair side right now. Just dealing with all the unknowns within the industry, but we've still been able to make things work, and we're just focusing on the repair. We've been bringing on actually a lot of other drone repair brands. One of the big ones was Autel. So if people know Autel, their customer service is awful, and they actually reached out to us, and being able to help take that load off of them.
Right, actually provide them boots on the ground service that they don't really otherwise have, at least at the scale that they need.
No, most definitely. When they're going and they only have a couple of repair techs out of their office in Washington for the whole United States. Actually, no, it's all of North America. Now have access to all of our trained and knowledgeable techs that we have here. And, repairing one drone isn't as much different than the other drone. We have the experience and knowledge, and it's just going through the different systems and, being able to, be able to do it for the next drone that comes out.
And yeah, so speaking of drones coming out, right? Obviously, DJI, despite the challenges that they're facing, like any drone company, right? Maybe to different degrees and for different reasons, they're still pushing out new drone products, but a lot of those aren't really able to be used by a lot of the organizations or government agencies that maybe even want to use those more than the options that they really have to use now. What are you seeing as far as like organizations that are technically or maybe should not use DJI drones? Are they finding workarounds to still get funding that's maybe not federal funding to use them, or are they just still proceeding anyway in some cases? Or are you having to see companies or organizations make trade-offs for the drones that they're having to use, maybe spending more money for similar capabilities, or no matter how much money they're spending, they're not even able to get similar capabilities? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so in Ohio, I'm going to base this all off of our public safety that we work with. We work with about 400 to 500 departments just in the state of Ohio. And we like to kind of stay, at least on the sales side, locally as much as we can, so we can provide the best service. Yeah. But at least Ohio is a very DJI-friendly state. When we are able to get DJI in, time to time, just through all the logistics and customs issues, they still prefer DJI over everything else. There are a couple agencies that are looking for other options that are Blue UAS or NDAA compliant. And once
until they demo them or try them out.
That's one of the things is demoing them. But if you look at the facts that are on the table, it can sometimes change their mind to still go back to DJI. Yeah. But we do carry a couple different brands, and we haven't sold many of them. Yeah. Just because it's not comparable.
Right.
They're still years behind. So even with
some may say a decade or more. Yeah.
I believe it. The one interesting one that I thought was interesting was the ACSL. They're a Japanese drone company. They're backed by the Yamaha Motor Company. So I know a lot of these drone companies out there don't have the backing or the funding or that side of things. They are an NDAA compliant drone, but it's they have such a large corporation backing them. Not only is Yamaha being such a large corporation, but they originally were started up, and a lot of their initial funding was through their government, but they are now a completely separate entity from at least what I've been told.
Now, yeah, that's interesting. You would think, and again, I hope it does work out well for them, but you just see like Sony, they've come out to the market going after the cinematographers, very high-end aerial photographers, and I think I could be wrong about this, I think they announced that they weren't going to come out with an AirPeak 2, that they're pretty much kind of letting the AirPeak ride, and then that may be it, at least for the foreseeable future for them. On the American front, and I guess American-Canadian front, Teledyne and FLIR, they had the Cirrus drone. I don't know if you're familiar with that or...
Yes.
And that, again, not really much better, if at all, than Develop Air as far as like the components that they're using. I even saw they were using like off-the-shelf props that we use on one of our Develop Air models. And this is a $24 billion company, and you're telling me that they can't come up with a better product than ours, let alone actually provide the customer support that's needed on the back end. And it's just sad that the American and really the West, by and large, is in this spot where no one's even close to DJI and Chinese drones, because again, what's the second best option that people are going to? Autel, right?
Yes.
And same boat, right?
Yeah, well, did you see Teledyne FLIR? They shut down their
Cirrus.
drone. Yep. They shut it down, but they're
going to provide support till September of next year. Is what I think I saw. That like they've already announced that they're not selling any, that they discontinued the business, but anyone that still has one, they'll still support them until next September. And it could have been this one.
I believe the actual date is May of 2027, just through information I've gained.
Okay.
But I know they're working with another company as of right now to handle all their after sales.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work out, there might be another company that might be handling that.
Okay. May or may not be AuHu drone repair. No.
There may have been discussions.
Conversations, yeah. No, one of the big problems that we've seen in domestic drone development are the gimbal camera systems, right? Zacti, I was talking with you with the, what is it, ASCII or
ACSL.
ACSL, okay. Drone that they actually had the Zacti gimbal that I mentioned that we're working to get our hands on, even just a sample unit, because that's all that company Zacti was selling, or at least stating that they would sell, because they have import or export restrictions. But have you seen any developments that like are coming out of the United States or any other Western countries for not even just gimbal cameras, but components that really stand out to you that maybe a drone could be built around, or drones are already built around, that maybe not quite there to replace DJI, but
honestly, there really isn't any. But something interesting on the camera side of things that I have heard is kind of how you were mentioning about that sensor. If there is no other really smaller, just RGB camera sensors for consumer drones, everything is all locked up in China in development. So if anybody wanted to do a consumer drone with a small sensor like a Mavic Air or Air 2S, like one of the DJI's, even older systems like that, all of that technology is locked up in China with no access. So a consumer drone from another company right now is,
next to impossible.
Yeah, next to impossible.
Yeah.
And that void
needs
field.
We're working on it, but 4 years into active development, and 4 years before that of ideation. And again, unfortunately for the country, we're just as far along as anyone else, but fortunately for us to some degree, right, we're just as far along as anybody else. Now, we have been looking at some off-the-shelf gimbal camera systems. Some of them, most of them, again, still coming over from China, but at least they still use Sony sensors, right? Or at least a lot of them do. But the electric motors is another huge problem that I think there's VertiIQ. I don't know if you're familiar with them, and
sounds very familiar.
Yeah, and they make electric motors here in the United States that have the ESC built into the motor, stacked.
Are they out of Pennsylvania?
Let me take a quick look and see if I could pull them up. VertiIQ. Look at that. And I might be blocking your camera, but I'm almost knocking over my water. Let's see. And they have halfway decent pricing, but again, for the consumer level.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. Okay. Have you had any experience with them, or no?
No, I was just talking with another person regarding their motors. It must have been a couple months back. That's where I think I remembered from that conversation. Yeah,
I forgot what they were called previously, but we talked with them when they're under another name and only had one motor out in the market, and then they're doing R&D and trying to do some customer discovery to see what sort of motors were in the most need and are in the most demand. And of course, all the money right here right now is the more enterprise government agency sort of organizations, to not to where budget is not an issue, but it's a very real difference where you're a consumer or a prosumer. You might have a $2,000-$3,000 budget and maybe stretch it to $3,500-$4,500 until you're starting to become more of a seasoned professional, if you will, starting to pick up more jobs, as doing mapping or aerial photography, videography predominantly, right? But oftentimes, government agency, $10,000-$15,000, and that's at the low end, right? A lot of times, especially some of the larger agencies, even adopting drone in a box systems where you're looking at $100,000 just to buy in, maybe $250,000, per unit. And that's what all the American companies, all the Western companies seem to be focusing on, where, China is producing all of these motors, gimbal cameras that, can be used on some of those more enterprise drones, but, at the volumes that make sense to where they're $5 a motor, $200, $300 for a gimbal camera, where you're looking at $1,000 for a motor made in America of a similar quality, made at a much smaller quantity. The gimbal cameras, if you can find them, I don't know if you've heard of a company called Next Vision. They're based out of California.
Sounds familiar, but I don't know off the top of my head. There's so much that's been, that's new, which is awesome that there's new growth here in the United States. I'm all for having an American drone company, especially one that I can support. Unlike Skydio, I feel like they've gone a very unprofessional way in the market.
Well, I do want to get into the legislation because I know that's a big part of what a lot of Americans get mad at Skydio about. And I get it on one hand, they want to do what's best for their business, but I also don't think they've been doing what's best for their business either.
Yes. Double-edged sword for them.
Yeah. Because they did have a foothold, not a big one, in the consumer market, and given it wasn't profitable, I would imagine, with the Skydio 2. But
they left their customer base.
Yeah.
But I definitely have seen them. Are they out of Quebec? No,
they're out of California.
Yeah, you did mention that.
But in any case, reach out to them and, $7,000, for some of their smallest, kind of 720p, but hey, it has like 40 times optical zoom, but it's still 720p, and it's like, man, it's just so sad that we, as a country, let ourselves get to this point, because it's not just the drone industry, it's all the electronics, products, even vehicles, right? It's creeped over into vehicles, given, China has like next to no good development on like internal combustion engines. But as we're getting more and more into, urban-based city travel, electric vehicles, I mean, again, those electric motors, same principles apply from a drone, at the small size to, the electric car motors. And we just have no capability of producing those in-house. And again, not that we want to be totally reliant on just all American products, but the fact that we don't have the ability to produce, at least a good portion of our demand, if not, a majority of our demand, especially for, drones that we're not just seeing as consumer and commercial products, but as crucial military products. Do we really want to be in a spot where, one, we're either relying on China's drones for our military, as we have been, if that's the best of what's available, I guess. But again, the moment that it comes, like China goes into Taiwan, or, China does anything that we see as a step too far and we're relying on their products, Yeah,
anything on the small UAS side, America's definitely is behind. And I don't know on the military side. From what I've heard, I think on the larger platforms, the airplane
but those all
size
suck though, right? Because it's like you can have the best, most advanced $100,000 drone, $1 million drone, $10 million drone, but that's still going to be exponentially easier to shoot down and take out than $1,000 drones.
Well, I'm talking more like Lockheed Martin, Anduril on that. Yeah. Those I think we do very well in that market, but small UAS, if there was
I think all of those. Sorry to keep coming, but I think all of those like drones, like they sound and look and maybe are very capable, but when actually push comes to shove, again, you're gonna use one of those drones for every 10,000 that China fields. Good fucking luck. And I think it's a lot of, hey, this looks cool and makes us feel good, but I don't know actually how effective they are when push comes to shove.
Well, that's true. There is so much within all that to understand. Well, at least we've seen the things that happen in Ukraine and Russia with all that.
RG Pilot, $1,000 DIY sort of FPV drones.
Completely changed warfare. Yeah. It's incredible to see. All of it, what has happened, I feel, bad, for all the people that have to go through that. I mean, the new PTSD that they're going to have to deal with, they come back and they're walking in the park and they hear a drone. But
start running, or feel like they need to pull out a firearm, yeah. But that's what I've heard is like that a lot of soldiers would actually go out and not even carry because it's basically pointless. It's just like you're always on alert for a drone buzzing noise, and then you try to run, like do whatever you can to get away from it. But it's like there's even been rounds that have been introduced, like drone shot rounds for rifles that are kind of like bird shot, but they still have like a slug in it, because a lot of the early days, the soldiers were trying to shoot down drones with their rifles, and they're just punching holes straight through them. They're still flying with the explosive payload, and by the time you could take it out with a shotgun, it was already within explosive range. And so, it's like now you need new rifle rounds just to take out drones, which is not the way that I wanted drones to be used. But again, it goes to beg the question of if these $1,000 drones are proving to be the most effective weapons in warfare, not just better than guns, but better than tanks, fighter jets, much larger drones, I think part of what we were talking about earlier is the FAA regulations, like Part 108 coming out, and where I think there's not enough talk is like, hey, great, we're going to get drone deliveries through like big companies through Part 108, but at the expense of the everyday American that doesn't have the same access to use that technology. Because as it stands right now, if I wanted to go set like my drone out in like the front yard and send it over to my neighbor's house, that's illegal right now. If like I go back in the house and I send my drone over to their yard and I want them to load it up with a couple eggs, a cup of sugar, flour, something like that, I was just made a criminal. And like, why is that the case, right? Because, well, what about safety? What if it were to fall on someone's head, right? Charge me with manslaughter, right? We already have laws that cover accidental assault or damage or killing of people, right? And that's what I don't think is being talked about enough. As like much as these drones are being used in warfare, thinking about the day-to-day value that they can provide, just from a convenience perspective. But then that same platform also being, part of your self-defense for your home, right? For your family, for your home.
Well, I think part of it is we need people like within the FAA and people who are making the rules, laws, all that need to come from like experienced people within the industry, because they don't have a full grasp of it. If someone like me or you would be able to have a lot more insight on if we were trying to put laws or rules into place, but somebody else that's just kind of reading and learning and they're not in the day-to-day of it, are they going to do what's best? They what they think it is, and from their people's different replies, and how things, a person says something, but somebody else takes it a different way. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing some work reaching out to our local Congress people, just because the Part 108, what a open forum sort of like feedback session is like going on right now. But it's like, and that whole NDAA regulations as well, like I get we want to have American made components, but at the same time I don't think it's the big problem that should be addressed, right? Again, from the ownership perspective, I think there's many points where like just buying a drone, legally speaking, you're required to register it with the FAA, right? And if you think about our Second Amendment, right? Think about registries at the federal level, right? That's unconstitutional, right?
Yep.
And if you look at how the Supreme Court has actually ruled on the Second Amendment, it's not firearms, it's weapons that would be not distributed, but like, whatever given out, like issued as part of a well-organized militia, and what are being issued as part of a well-organized militia, as we're seeing in Ukraine, as we're seeing in Russia, low-cost, $1,000 sort of DIY, what I think will become personal drones, right? And I know that's like a big hill to like, like stand on, like what, right. The FAA is going to walk back that, registering your drone. I think that needs to be walked back to some degree, remote ID. I'm not totally against the idea of like having some sort of identification or licensing, like in the same way, we have a car that we drive recreationally, there's still a license attached to it, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, there's this delineation between operating a drone commercially and operating a car recreationally or commercially recreationally, where I got into it with this drone operator online local to us, where I was talking about like the Part 108 guidelines, like being great for opening up drone deliveries for large organizations. But as an American citizen, there is no legal pathway without me starting a company and going through the waiver process to use my drone for my own personal deliveries. And why is that just inherently illegal, right? I
was kind of, upsetting with what they released with the Part 108. I thought it'll be a lot more involved. They released something that, yes, it's a baby step there, but how they talked about what was going to come out and everything was completely kind of different than, what came out. I felt like it was a real, slap in the face.
Yeah, and it's also not even made transparent, really. I mean, it's like, here's a 700-page document or whatever, and then, of course, people go in and distill it, but it's like, why do we need to have this much for like, to me, I feel like we could come up with a couple of pages, and it's like, with all the other laws that we already have on the books, outside of drone operation, I think it would cover any way that you would misuse a drone that, you don't need 100 pages to cover, right? And again, that's a gross oversimplification of it, but it's almost been like grossly overcomplicated on purpose, right? Just to obscure, what's really going on behind a black box. And it's like, oh, well, you had your time to comment on it. It's like, really? I had time to read through all 700 pages to know what's actually being proposed?
Yep.
And then, come back to you with something that you're actually going to listen to?
Yeah, and also, who's going to enforce it? I know, like...
it's not even enforced at the levels it's at right now, right?
Yeah, and you expect, for local law enforcement to learn all this information. I mean, the amount of times, I've had questions from local law enforcement when they've, purchased drones and stuff through us. They're like, hey, we had this one call out about this guy flying a drone here. Like, what's legal about it? What's not? Like, what could they do? And, I share it to the one person, but are they going to share it back with, the department? Like, they're just, they don't know.
Yeah, and that's a big part of even like with what I'm campaigning for, like the whole idea of personal assistant drones. Because again, most people like recognize drone deliveries coming, and I keep on harping on that, but that's just like one of the primary reasons why I think people will want and come to own personal assistant drones. It's like, why pay for a drone delivery service, $3, $5, $10, whatever it is, to Amazon, Walmart, whatever, when you just already have a drone, right? Like, there's already 1 million people in the United States, roughly speaking, just recreationally buying $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 drone. All it does is take photos and videos. And it's like, you're telling me for that same price, maybe a little bit more, you could have a drone that could also you send to the local Amazon locker, fast food restaurant, retail store, and it can pick up your items, kind of on demand. Or, hey, I have a package to return to the local UPS store, right? You send your drone to return the package to the local
That's
UPS.
Definitely an interesting concept.
And that to me is like what we need to really lead the drone industry here in America. That, China, I don't think they're going to develop their drone industry that way, because like their whole modus operandi, of the government is keep power centralized within the government, right? And I think our real advantage would be is like, let's show how drones can be used by the everyday person in a way that just isn't legally ever going to be allowed in a country like China, right? Because technologically speaking, they're already way ahead of us, right? But if we start like, hey, we're not going to try to beat them by and large building flying cameras or, these mission-specific delivery drones or these mission-specific agriculture drones, but make something more akin to like a personal computer, right? That can be used for, doing your home deliveries, watering your garden, fertilizing your yard, sending your kid to go play laser tag with it, or, other games, right? Like, and it becomes more a part of your everyday life in that sort of way. That's, I think, where, we can stand out, and even more particularly as a company, what we're working towards,
Well, I know I was in China actually last year, and there was a lot of things that were in China that would go against our, rules and regulations and laws and all that. So there are actually a lot less rules and regulations for a lot of things that they have out there. I'm trying to think of specifics. It's not coming to my head, but I think we're actually really restricted on our rules and regulations. So that whole ability to have this free fly all the drones all over, it's going to be very hard just on our side with the amount of rules and regulations that we have to go through.
Yeah, and not even just the rules and regulations, even the understanding of them by the everyday person that, you were talking about, you've had experiences, people shooting down drones with, your customers or even operations you've been a part of. I've had similar sort of experiences, and a lot of it isn't even necessarily just the shooting down the drone, but it's just like, well, I don't want a drone operating over my property. Well, that's my property. And people think, they own everything below the ground, like down into the ground and everything up in the sky. And it's like, no, as much as like, I may even want that to be the case, not actually saying that. I do think it should be a public airspace, but in the way that it is currently, it's technically speaking public airspace, but just totally controlled by the FAA.
Yep.
But for all intents and purposes, it's the FAA's airspace that they let us use. And I think it should be the other way around. It's public airspace, and then maybe specific like military operating areas. Again, that's a big one that,
Airports.
What's that?
Airports,
yeah. But again, even with the whole idea of like passenger drone travel, to your point, like I don't know if you saw any of that happening when you're in China. Like as far as I've seen it online, in some cities there you can actually get in a passenger drone in like an Uber type of service and actually transport across like Beijing, Shanghai, maybe Shenzhen. I don't know if you saw any of that happening.
I've seen videos online. I didn't see anything in person. It was a very short trip, but I do have a longer trip coming up here in a couple months, so I want to be able to check out and see that technology.
Now, is that something that you personally would be up to doing? Like if you were offered there, like, hey, we have a 10-minute, round trip ride, 15-minute round trip ride, would you get in a Chinese passenger drone?
Oh, definitely. I'd be willing to try it out. I
Yeah.
mean, you only live once, and if that's the way I go out, I mean, there's
worse ways to go.
There is worse ways to go. I'm signing my own risk for it, but I think it'd be a really cool experience because I don't know how many other
people have done that. Palmer Luckey, if you're familiar with him, founder of Anduril, founder of Oculus, he just got delivered his Jetson 1 a couple days ago, a few days ago. And I had some guy like facetiously like try to like get a gotcha on me, try to make me look stupid. Hey Jacob, are these the types of passenger drones that you're talking about? Because obviously that's something I would like to, as a company, work towards in making our own passenger drone. So, I've, kidding, not kidding, said one of the ways I would be okay with dying is in a passenger drone test flight, of one of our own passenger drones, right? Hopefully, at least a few more decades out, right? But not as far as, developing it, but, dying, right?
Yeah.
I have some life to still live, but, I'm with you, right? Like that, there would be far worse ways to go, if it was kind of being a pioneer, or early adopter of a passenger drone.
It would be a really good PR, though.
Yeah.
I mean, died in your own product. Look what happened with Segway. I think it was like the second CEO of Segway, or owner, whoever bought it after the fact, I think, drove his Segway off a cliff. Don't quote me on it, but like...
Grand Canyon.
Was it?
It's in the Grand Canyon.
Okay. The passenger drone, like I think that's another like just sort of far out there sort of concept in so many people's minds here in the United States. It's like, oh yeah, when pigs fly, and it's like you go over to China and it's, if you have $350,000, and it might even be a little bit more now, you can go buy one, and again, there's like the American, best American version that you can get. And it's essentially a flying go-kart, or a flying like jet ski or whatever. It's a recreational vehicle. It's not something that you'd actually want to commute to work in, right?
Yep.
Or commute to the park in or whatever, right? And like that's what I'm interested in.
Have you seen? I don't know the person's name, but he has like
Hunter Kowald, the sky surfer.
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
And that's awesome seeing his videos.
Yeah.
And he's out there testing and trying. There's plenty of videos of him falling.
Yeah.
It's awesome to see, like, he's
pushing the bounds,
for it, and that's definitely something, I'm always for pushing the limits because that's how innovation comes about.
And yeah, I was showing you maybe less cool in some respects, and some respects I think even cooler. The guy that I was talking to earlier today, podcast number 1 of the day, Ethan Krause, a local Oberlin, Ohio resident, first guy to ever build, he invented essentially in the sense that he was the first to design, build, and fly an ionic wind aircraft, which is basically a fancy way of saying no engine or no motor, no propeller. So it's basically just taking, electrifying the air around the top of the aircraft and collecting or like pushing that air, or it's really pulling the air downwards to create the lift of the aircraft. And so it's like super lightweight. The whole aircraft is like 29 grams or something like that. And it's like 6 feet wingspan, but it's like shaped like a flying saucer. And then I know I sent you pictures, but the people that just may be listening and then didn't watch the previous episode, and just for kind of a visual, this Pixhawk 60 flight controller weighs like 39 grams, something like that. So his whole aircraft, that's a 6 feet wingspan, weighs less than just one component, like the main brain of our drone, which I thought was pretty wild. And it's like, well, where's the practicality of that? It's like, well, where was the practicality in the Wright brothers' first flight that was like 19 seconds and dozens of feet? And that was at a time where people thought it was literally physically impossible to sustain manned flight, right? And here we are, with like the early days of this ionic wind aircraft where, again, he's beat MIT to the punch. He was the first one in public history, public record, to actually build one that has the battery power on board. Going back to like the 1930s, Japan had built like you're wearing Alistair hat, the Tether drone company. They had basically built a tethered ionic wind aircraft. So they had like a whole like garage, warehouse sort of space filled with batteries and then a power cable going up to this ionic wind aircraft. And then, it was like 1964, another like Russian guy created one that was also like tethered to like an external power supply. But yeah, this guy Ethan Krause just, I mean this in a good way, like a mad scientist or like just willing to commit to it. Started his first one back in 2000 and has literally just been 25 years now, just continuing to iterate and improve on this design. And in 2006 or 2007, he took flight with his first one, and I think his record now for a sustained flight, which isn't much, but again, look at it in perspective to the Wright brothers' first flight, like 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so...
it's always good. We need that in the industry. I mean, I have plenty of little side projects I'm always tinkering with. That's kind of, my favorites is at least when we go towards winter months and it's a little bit, slower and I'm less hectic and I can enjoy my weekends. I just love coming to the shop and thinking of ideas and tinkering. I mean, I had one was a window breaker. Be able to go and put on a drone, be able to go and enter buildings. I know originally the idea, which I learned after the fact, was from a company called Brink in their drone, and I thought of the idea of kind of building a prototype, doing research, and I'm like, oh, this already exists. So that was the first version of it. And I'm like, okay, well, I can take this a different route. So I went to the second version, was using a 22 blank with a ball bearing, which to find out, not allowed to have projectiles on a drone. So my third option, third version was I used a spring to launch the ball bearing, which I didn't realize. Still a projectile. So the fourth was a punch that was on there, and then I kind of started to realize, most windows and stuff like that are double paned or laminate and all that, and that idea kind of died off. But that's one of many things that I've kind of worked through, had fun, and just kind of...
Now, when you say you realized, did the FAA realize and or did you go to someone hey, this is what I'm doing, am I going to be able to do this, or it's just you looked into it and clearly saw that
it was either from just doing research or talking with people I know and trying to getting ideas and how to improve it, how to market it.
Yeah.
The one for the The projectile one, that was from just doing research. I don't even think the research was pertaining to it, and that kind of, broke my heart when I was working on another project.
Yeah.
The second one was actually talking to another person and showing them the spring version, and they're like, hey, yeah, you're not allowed to have, like weapons, so like the 22 blank doesn't work, but, you're still shooting a projectile out of it. And I don't know where, I think my initial thought was the explosive piece from the 22 blank is what it was, and then it later turned into like no projectiles, no weapons whatsoever.
Which is another. I mean, what, you don't want like drones like with flamethrowers connected to the internet that you can remotely operate from anywhere. Like what's the danger in that, right? And that's a joke I've actually used with some FAA enforcement officers, hypothetically speaking, where the ATF, they regulate weapons, right? Firearms, explosives, etc. They don't classify flamethrowers as a weapon. But the FAA, when you attach it to the drone, does. And I don't get, like...
Is it a weapon or is it a tool? Because you can use it to burn things off power lines or...
Well, and that's, like, the discrepancy where we can legally make and sell a flamethrower. We can legally make and sell a drone, which actually... again, that's one of the other regulations that really American lawmakers, at least as the legislation currently is, they don't want more American drone companies because, there's like the whole memorandum of compliance, to actually be a drone manufacturer. And it's like, well, where does that start? Are you making one custom drone? Does that mean you have to have the memorandum of compliance that every drone that you have has remote ID? And it's like... because then you're literally never going to get any startup companies, I
remember when I visited you, was 3-4 years ago, and I think remote ID was starting to get talking, and you guys were not sure what to do. It was a pretty big thing that was coming down the pipeline that you guys had your product and everything. I don't know if it was prototype or.
There's still prototypes. Really, or development platforms.
Yeah. And that was one of your concerns, what to do. Are you just grabbing an off the shelf unit, or are you designing your own? So I do remember that struggle, and that had been a struggle with all the companies across the board. But one thing I do know is working with some of the drone detection units, we've had tons and tons of issues with Skydio of not showing up on our remote ID, which they claim that there's remote ID, but all of the tests we did, they haven't showed up. There's maybe 6 or 7 different instances when we tested, and maybe for whatever reason the unit or the receiver we're using doesn't pick them up for what it was, but there was we couldn't pick up Skydio.
And out of curiosity, was that like an iPhone that you're using? Because I think there is something I've seen, and I don't think it's unique to Skydio, or even if Skydio falls under this umbrella, but I think there are at least some off-the-shelf like drone modules or remote ID modules that you can get, that you can make it so they're only viewable like in a certain only via Wi-Fi and not Bluetooth, or only if you could see private networks or something and that's enabled on your phone. And
it was the 2 different ones we used was Drone Tag. They're
DRI or something.
Not their. We've tested with the Scout and the handheld version. The Rider, which we have one of those in the showroom, which is really cool. A little small unit that'd be able to detect. Then the other one was UAV Sentry. I wasn't the one running the system or anything. I was there assisting with another drone team, and they were kind of saying hey, the Skydio stuff wasn't working, and I was trying to figure out some of this information, but I wasn't directly involved, but I do know it wasn't showing up on that system either.
And so, obviously Skydio has at least been accused or blamed of a lot of the legislation that we've now seen in this country. What are your thoughts? I know a very general question. What are your thoughts on Skydio as a company? I know how much do you? Obviously you deal with them to some degree, but how do you recommend them, if at all, or is it
I don't recommend them. I just their way of doing business is, I feel, is even more communist than China, and I feel like how DJI has been doing business is more capitalistic, which is kind of funny.
Yep.
But it's you're trying to ban all the products that we do sell to make a living that all the drone operators use, but as well as me and my team. But then it's like, okay, so you want to ban these products? All right, let me resell your products. Yeah. Oh no, sorry, you can't. Like, all right, so you're gonna get rid of the things I can sell, and then you're not gonna give me the product to sell. Yeah. I don't like that stance point. And they've built up such a bad reputation that even if tomorrow they said, hey, you can be a reseller, I think it will hurt the company's reputation more than it would actually help us.
Yeah, I mean, because again, it's not even just their legislation, right? I mean,
they got other drones knocked off the blue list.
Really? Okay.
They slimmed down that blue list, which was I don't know all the research and notes, and maybe I'm wrong on it, but from my understanding, Skydio was lobbying to get them pushed off the blue list.
See, yeah, and I've also heard, I've heard this with Autel, even DJI, as great as they are, like, drones fall out of the sky sometimes, right, and, I feel like Skydio, maybe, I don't know, rightfully so, but I've heard, some of those claims with Skydio, maybe per capita more than other brands, but I get it. We make drones. None of them have ever fallen out of the sky, though. No, that's not true.
A recent thing that came out. So Skydio is definitely pushing for public safety. Yeah. But there's a recent thing is like, hey, don't have a radio on you because it's going to interfere with your signal for your Skydio.
I heard about that. Yeah.
So it's like, they don't even know. Like, they're not even selling the best product they can to like their market. Because I don't know one public safety agency that the show pilot is not going to have a radio, because you're using it as another camera in the sky and providing intel and other information to the rest of your team and organization. And how are you going to communicate that? Your secure radio. You're not going to be texting the police chief, hey, here's the suspects at this location, or giving them a phone call. You're using your radio. It's so everyone knows what's going on. So it's like it's kind of.
Do you know what frequencies those radios typically operate at? Like, because I feel like the radio would be like, for telemetry would be like 915, unless they're doing like Wi-Fi 2.4.
I don't know. I'm not knowledgeable on that, so I don't know.
Damn, Roger, admitting you don't know something, that's like the sign of like actually being like a good person, Like,
there's plenty I don't know.
Yeah. Must be nice. No. No. I guess Skydio, I don't want to harp on them too much. I guess they give them some benefit of a doubt. One thing that they have had like a claim to fame for, even with going back to when they're in the consumer market with the Skydio 2, was like the follow me sort of obstacle avoidance. Have you had any encounters with that, or agencies that have encountered using their obstacle avoidance, or have you like actually done testing with that compared to other systems? Have other people caught up in that regard, or do you think it was all overblown to begin with? How do you think about?
I've heard a lot of their system at the time with their consumer drones, being superior to DJI. I would like to see it face to face now, especially with DJI getting LiDAR into some of their drones. But I do know a lot of customers that don't use our optical avoidance, and will end up sending the drone to us in shambles. But it's optical avoidance. We want to tell our customers, it's like, hey, it's not foolproof.
Right.
If it was foolproof, I wouldn't be still repairing drones.
Right.
I wouldn't be hiring more and more repair techs. We have plenty of Mavic 4s that are even in the office, and they're supposedly not in the United States, and I can guarantee you, if I look in our system right now, we probably have somewhere between 5 to 10 that are in for repair.
Yeah, and I guess going back a little bit more, I want to touch on this. I talked about how I think we need to have drones that for the everyday person, right? They can own and operate, and have a legal pathway to be able to like use a drone for utilitarian purposes. Where again, this drone operator I was talking with, he was like, well, isn't that by definition a commercial use? And it's like, wait, are you driving your car to the grocery store to pick up groceries? Is that a commercial operation? No. right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, why are you not allowed to send your own drone to the grocery store in that same sort of capacity? Like, obviously, then need to start working with grocery stores. Hey, instead of having 8 curbside pickup spots for cars, reallocate 2 of them for drones, right? Like, that's just about all the infrastructure requirement that you would really need to at least get started in like a early adopter, early innovators, sort of way. And of course, then refine it over time to where, you have automated landing zones with like QR codes that the drones are scanning and then automatically notifying someone or even a robot in the store, hey, bring out this package to this drone, load it up, and then it gets automatically sent back, right? But to have that sort of reality, again, like where we can kind of be the shining light of how drones come to be used compared to the rest of the globe, especially compared to China, right? Even though, to your point, they're ahead of us in that regard, where you even see like construction companies, they're going and building solar farms out there and having drones deliver the solar panels up these mountainsides or whatever, right? That's just not something that we're seeing done in the United States, again, let alone at consumer level, given that's not really happening anywhere now. But I just see that being paramount for us to develop the drone industry here in the same way that you go back to the automotive industry. To me, it's like you either are going to have people have the ability to own and operate their own drones, or you're going to have it so like the automotive industry where the equivalent would be everyone that wants to experience a car has to either do so via a public transportation service or through a ride sharing or like taxi sort of service offered through a big commercial enterprise. And that to me seems very dystopian, totalitarian, big brother security state. And unfortunately, that's one, where we're at right now with drone regulations, and 2, where it seems like we're continuing to head, where again, the whole idea of Part 108, making BV loss available so you don't even have to go get a waiver, but Part 108 is only going to be available to large corporations, right? Really by and large. And even it's like, well, if you wanted to, like right now, again, like just do the example I was talking about, sending like a delivery to anywhere, right? Whether it's to a neighbor, to a store, or whatever, you have to the only way to legally do so is becoming a commercial operator through a Part 107, getting a waiver. That's nuts to me.
That is, but I mean, I feel like everything how it initially starts off always does start on business and enterprise side of things, and then it moves into the public use. I mean, how do you manage the airspace on it?
Right, but the difference here is the regulations are ahead of the development, where in like the automotive industry, it wasn't until like the 1930s that every state across the nation had driver's licenses. Where it was like 1906 that the Model T that we all know as the Model T came out, given it wasn't till like 1914 that it was really mass produced, like the widespread adopted car that people were relearning how to drive on, even though there's hundreds of thousands and millions of cars delivered beforehand, right? It still wasn't a mass market sort of experience for the everyday consumer, right? And it was, to your point though, like, it was delivery businesses that were buying the Model T and some earlier cars, and they were offering then deliveries on behalf of businesses, like we're seeing where like Drone Up offering delivery services on behalf of Walmart, right? Or Matternet on behalf of UPS, or a little bit different because they're actually building the drone as well. But in any case, it is very similar in that sense, where it's like the delivery companies buying the first automobiles, delivering on behalf of businesses, and then businesses were like, hey, we can just buy our own and offer deliveries directly to our customers instead of our packages being delivered along 8 other businesses, whenever that delivery business, fits them into their route. And then better yet, it's like, hey, now I as an individual consumer can go buy my own automobile and go to the store, go to the restaurant, and pick up whatever I want whenever I want. Right?
If you look kind of like DoorDash and the other services like that, where they have somebody that delivers it to you, initially it was just them delivering it to you, but now they have an option that you can pre-order it now and go and pick it up. Yep. So I mean, it could be something like that stance, or that type of model that could be happening. I mean, I think it's
It's literally just curbside pickup, but instead of you getting in the car to drive, you're sending your drone.
Yeah.
Like, literally no different.
But can you right now send a car to autonomously do that?
I mean, there's not really a car that, like, if you had a Waymo, I mean, you could, right?
Yeah. No, this is definitely something like new concept that I personally never thought of or heard of. So it's like definitely it's intriguing to me to understand it.
That's what's crazy to me, because that's to me obvious. Like, if we're not heading in that direction, we need to be heading in that direction, because that puts the power back in the hands of the people, right? And it's, again, I'm not trying to say there will be no drone delivery services, right? There clearly will be, as there clearly are right now. But as we've seen with the automotive industry, as much as, like, we still may use Uber, right, you know, from time to time, we still own our own automobiles, right? And I think that's what's going to make sense for most people, is, like, you have your drone, and maybe it can't do all of your deliveries, you know, because you don't have a big enough drone for, you know, the type of delivery you want to send. So you are paying for the store to send out their drone to deliver it, right? I think it's not one or the other. It should be both. But right now, it's really only happening that the consumers can't even have it. And this goes even beyond, like, these kind of far out there delivery ideas. Even just as it stands legally speaking, FPV drone flying is illegal, right? And even most drone flying that people are doing is illegal, either not registering, not operating with remote ID, or even just operating beyond visual line of sight as the drone briefly goes beyond the tree or beyond the building or whatever. And I think you mentioned it, like, the FAA can't already enforce the people breaking the law right now. It's like, because we're going to continue developing this technology to make it easier to use, so the everyday person can have their own personal assistant drone and do their own deliveries, water their own garden. It's like, are you just going to start locking up hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans, you know, just as we give them this capability? Good luck, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, the amount of drones that we even get in for repair that don't have FAA labels on them, it's probably more of them than actually do come in.
Right.
Or people who don't even know, you know, what that is, or they don't have their Part 107 and they're doing it for commercially, and you know, we're informing them about it. But it's like, you know,
you're not the drone police.
I'm not the drone police. I'm going to inform them, like, hey, like, let you know that these are regulations, and you do as you wish with that information. Because if not, I would have a whole list of people that, you know, that were breaking the law. But, you know, I don't. It doesn't bother me, because I didn't know when I first got started with the drones. The first drone job I went there to apply it, and the owner told me, he's like, you know, do you have your Part 107? And I was like, what is that? Learned what it was, scheduled a test 4 days later. I'm pretty sure it was the first test I ever studied for in my life. And got my license, went there again, like, all right, I got my license, all right, where's my job? And they didn't hire me until I kept on being persistent. And 3 months later, started working for them. But a lot of it is people don't know. I mean, they get a drone and they see people use it for work, and they're like, all right, I want to do the same thing, and they just don't know.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, like, I'm not calling for, like, no regulations, right? You know, but it does need to be at least a pathway for you as an individual to operate a drone in a way that can provide you utility. And that's just not seemingly in anyone's mind in a lot of cases, right? It's just like, not a lot of people are out there thinking about drones all day, every day, you know, in the sense that I am, right? And that's why, you know, I like to have conversations like this, because it is crazy. Like, to me, everyone in the drone industry that I talk to, where this seems obvious to me, is like, oh wow, I've never even thought of that before. And it's like, again, it's Henry Ford, the Franz Porsche, you know, it's like imagining a car for the everyday person. Yeah, right. You know, these are toys for rich people. Or, you know, even the personal computer. It's like, wait, everyone have a computer on their desk? Yeah, right. You know, why would people want that? And that's where we're at. It's like, most people, why would I even want a drone, you know? And it's like, and then it's actually getting a drone that's easy enough to use, affordable enough, you know, can provide that value. And
well, I'm honestly happy at least the narrative of drones have changed. I feel like before everyone thought they were bad, they were going to be spying on.
Still get that to some degree.
To some degree,
not
but
as much to your point,
it used to be majority of it, everyone had a negative view on it. But now, like, you know, you still have the people who have the negative view, but, you know, that has gone away. And I think it just takes time for people to understand. So, I mean, you having this idea, now you just be able to spread the word,
Evangelize, yeah.
and let people think on it and have more people request it. Because one person requesting it, I'm sure there's many more than you, but like a small percentage is not going to be able to push much through. But if you get a large amount, because think on it, like my mind's been spinning with other ideas. Because you can go off the rideshare thing on an enterprise side of things. I could own 10 drones like that, and somebody could order something, and I can then send from Central Hub, send
service.
Send one of my drones out to go and go make this delivery and come back, and just like ideas like that are starting to spin within my head.
Yeah, and I think that's where, again, wanted to really highlight, the work that you're already doing, where like the automotive industry, where we wouldn't be able to all drive around our own individual cars if we didn't have the networks of dealerships and mechanics, independent mechanics, right? And there's just like, there's 1 million, 2 million drone operators in the country now. How many people can actually design a drone, develop a drone, repair a drone, like do all this sort of engineering, technician, developer sort of work? Very few, right? And that's like, we need to build up that base in this country, right? Because otherwise we will never have an automotive industry like equivalent for the drone industry, right? And given we've gotten now to a point, most people don't work on their own cars, but it was, at the early days, if you were a car operator, you were also a mechanic to some degree, right? And I feel like, our reliance on China is kind of like leapfrog that step for a lot of people, where like they buy a drone, they know nothing about it, and like, because all they're about is aerial photography and videography, right? And that's where, obviously a much smaller market of people that want to fly a drone, actually use it, get value, and then be able to work on it, especially being able to build a drone that you can actually work on yourself, and then use it in a commercially viable setting, right? Or for a commercial application, right? Total other hurdle to get over. But
going back to your one point on the mechanics and repairs and that side of things, you got to think about part storage and availability.
Right.
Besides some of the more exotic and fancier cars, most of the baseline cars that are out there, you can go and get all the parts ordered to your door or to the shop or anything like that, even down to the computers and stuff like that.
Scale.
We're even struggling with even with DJI, we can go and be able to, there's two things that we were struggling with that we weren't able to do, is be able to recalibrate gimbal cameras as well as the core boards. As of this day, we were able to work with them and be able to get the gimbal calibration software, but for the parts side of things, they won't sell us the gimbal parts. So we have to source those through a backdoor out of China. They are still DJI parts, but they are
through a factory distributor,
something like that. But the other thing is still the core boards of the drones. If for whatever reason a customer comes in and your core board is damaged for whatever reason, there is nothing we can do. We've tried to work with DJI on it, and we had talks that they were going to start doing it, and then they completely pulled back. So that's just one drone brand. Next we go to Autel. That's another one that's we are able to actually get all the parts for it, but one thing between both of them is the software and those calibration side of things, which I understand, yes, some cars do run into the same thing, but one of the common drones, Mavic 3 series for DJI, to calibrate the vision sensors, you need to have a special software, which we only got that recently. They've, gatekeep that. And from my understanding with DJI, they're only giving the software that I was mentioning to only 4 dealers across the United States. And frankly, I know 2 of them. I don't know even the third one. And at least the one I know is not even, I didn't even know they did repairs. So that's like, it's kind of hard. We gain a lot of business, on that repair side, we're just having repair in our name. But, that stuff needs to be open across the board. And also another thing with the parts, working with DJI, they told us, no, we're no longer allowed to sell parts online and, direct to consumer. So we had to actually pull that back. So it's like, okay, so you really are gatekeeping the industry. So there's that side of things that you won't be able to advance. If you want the drone to be an everyday use thing, people need to everyday use it, because how many people will work on their own vehicles just because it'll be cheaper for them, saves them money, a lot of different things.
Gets it back up and running faster, yeah. And same thing with the PC industry. Like, and again, given now it's pretty much been all consolidated into Geek Squad. You know, you just take your computer to a local Best Buy, and they can either fix it or send it back off. But same thing, like we had tons of computer repair shops, from the late 70s all the way through like the mid 2000s, even early 2010s in some cases, and we just don't have that same sort of footprint. I mean, it's getting better. Thankfully, you're leading the charge, building it, and again, doing very well as a result, right? Just because, people are, obviously not to the degree that I'm talking about, but if you look at all of the drone operators, recreational and commercial in the United States, registered, it's I think just over 1 million now, but let's say it's actually probably 2 million, right? And that may even still be low. It's only another decade before that number's 20 million drone operators, and another decade or so before, like maybe another couple of decades before, maybe not 200 million drone operators, but 100 plus million households, which is damn near every household, or every household in business will be operating a drone on a daily or near daily basis, right? And it's like, we're going to need a lot more people to be able to repair drones, sell drones, service them, do upgrade and modification work to them. And right now, like, it's, to your point, not just a problem with American drones, right? But, the whole global drone market has kind of been shaken up, and hopefully, give companies like ours and others in the United States the ability to kind of play some catch up, with some somewhat favorable terms. But, I mean, there's no getting around the fact that anyone that wants to use a drone for a commercial purpose, if they can help it, they're getting a DJI, and it's not even close.
Yeah, no, we've had plenty of customers when we haven't had DJI drones in. We'll sell them an Autel, and then they hear we have DJI drones, like, oh, let me trade this in, and comparing them side by side, there's so many more features in that DJI drone, and it's hard for
the features, even that might be like side by side on paper, the same features, is just better implemented on the DJI, more vertically integrated, or
100%.
Yeah.
They're like the Apple of the drone world.
See, I disagree with that. I think they're actually the BlackBerry. I think they haven't really hit the mass appeal that Apple did. And again, they're more like BlackBerry did like everything the iPhone did, just not as well. And maybe not everything that the iPhone did, right? But it was like the first like smartphone, and there's even like feature phones before that could still browse the web, check email, but there was still more like toys, everyday sort of like and then BlackBerry came along and like refined it to where like this is like the business phone, right? And I think that's where DJI more is. I would like to think we could really be the Apple of the drone space. Obviously have a lot of catching up to do, but especially like from our software perspective, which I don't think I've shown you that at all. Like we've made quite some progress. Like our current version has some functionality issues, but again, you start somewhere. And this is another big aspect of making drones easy to use for the everyday person, because right now, beyond like the expensive smart controllers that we're talking about become paperweights, another big part is like our parents' generations didn't grow up playing video games where you have like one joystick to move the character, one to control the camera, right? And that's just a digital character, right? You're not controlling a physical vehicle in the real world, right? And I think that's where, we need software for our customers and just drone users, more like Google Maps, to where you can see your drone on the map. You can follow along with it, just like you can like see your computer's location. And then you just tell it where you want it to go and what you want it to do at that location. And now you can plug in a game controller, use whatever you want to fly it manually, like PlayStation, Xbox, whatever. But right now, it's you're familiar with like doing waypoint missions, right? Yeah. But the next step for that is routing, just like Google Maps. You're not telling Google Maps, hey, I want to get from my aunt and uncle's house in Grafton to Ohio drone repair, and I'm going to turn left here on, Pearl Road or whatever, which I didn't pass, but it creates the best route for you. And that's what we're working towards. And it's already possible. I've seen a guy build out this sort of software, but not in a way that integrates with anything, right? It was just like, hey, this software technically speaking works, but then you would have to download the KML file and then upload it to a drone so it's not just part of the process of operating the drone, right? To where I just need to be able to set my drone outside, or if it's in a drone in a box system outside, and tell it, go pick up my most recent Starbucks order, right? And it automatically doesn't fly as the crow would. It, for instance, this is hypothetically speaking. Let me just get to a mission. So, I don't think I have it assigned to developer. No. Okay, so now, if I wanted to fly develop air back to my parents' house, my parents live hypothetically.
You don't need to be exact.
Yeah, well, we can be exact. It's public domain. Highland Pass, Brookside Court. So, if I wanted to fly to my parents' house from our local drone park, instead of just flying a straight line, I would fly this because it's flying over trees for almost the entire way, right? Minimizing flying over people, cars, houses, etc., right? And we can automatically create routes like that using terrain data that's publicly available, building data that's publicly available, even data that's publicly available from smartphones. So if there's a music festival somewhere and there's a big congregation of people, when you're telling your drone to go fly to Starbucks, it's automatically routing around that big congregation of people. Right?
So that kind of goes back to your idea of everyday use of drones, going to go pick up a delivery. How do you kind of control that airspace? Are they just going to be flying over the roads, but if they fall out of the sky, going on the roads, or you flying over a certain land, and how do you control that? Because if you're flying mainly over woods area or certain type of infrastructure, aren't people going to be upset if it's I bought all this woods to be private, but now I have drones flying this as a drone highway.
Yeah, what about the helicopters and airplanes flying above head, right? Again, it's not their property.
Yep, I do know. So 77, half a mile that way.
Yep.
And helicopters will fly it. They actually use it as a point of interest to be able to fly down towards southern Ohio. So there's definitely times at nighttime when I've either been here at the office or at my house, which is down the road a few miles, right near the highway, and I'll hear a helicopter at nighttime. I go pull up a FlightAware and check to see what it is, and light flight or something like that. So they follow it. No, they definitely seem like they have certain pathways they follow.
Yeah, and I think there's obviously going to be legislation that comes about. I really think, again, to your point, we need someone like us within the FAA. We really either need a president or someone that's president to elect the head of the FAA that will create an air interstate system. So, hey, at the federal level, we're going to create these high-level, fast-speed corridors for interstate drone travel, right? And then leave it up to all the local municipalities to say, here's where we're going to create our airway. So when you take off from your neighborhood, your drone's going to merge over to this air roadway, right? And then you progressively get from a little rural sort of road, hey, I'm sending my drone over to just someone in the neighborhood, so it's going to be able to pretty much just fly a direct path or along, and so then it just steps up in progression. Hey, I'm flying my drone 6 miles away, it's going to have the capability to basically do the equivalent of what highway speeds are for a car, right? And so I think we're just over time going to get digital software infrastructure for drones that's a lot cheaper to build out than the roadway system that we got.
So if you look at the infrastructure, what's coming to my mind is they'll have to have infrastructure up to every single piece of property. So would they just follow the main roads, and there might be some extra?
Yeah, like hey, when it's within your property or a neighborhood, whatever, maybe more free flowing until then it gets up to a roadway. And again, that's kind of like how it was with cars, right? There weren't roads wherever people were driving cars. I mean, again, we take the interstate system for granted now. Like, oh yeah, we can just go anywhere across the United States in our car. That was 4 decades after, the automobile really took off, right? And really 6 decades since it was introduced. And so I think it's just a matter of time to where we see that sort of infrastructure. But even in the meantime, just drones in this sort of sense that are connected to the internet, right? And again, it's like, why would I want a drone, and why would I want a drone connected to the internet? It's like same thing with like, why would I want a computer? Why would I want a computer connected to the internet, right? It's now able to access, a lot further reaches. You can operate it like, hey, I'm maybe on the way home from a road trip, and I don't want to stop at, fast food because I just want to get home. You can have your drone, that's already at the house, send out to your fast food restaurant and have it meet you back at the house, right? And you're maybe 30 miles still out, but your drone's connected to the internet, and you're basically interacting with it, and even if you're at your home, like through your Google Home, Amazon, Alexa, right? And I think just by the nature of drones being connected to the internet, which I don't necessarily want to mandate. I know that was something that the cellular companies pushed for remote ID originally. It's like, hey, let's just make every drone have a SIM card on it, and then that requires every drone to have a data plan, which I think that will by and large happen in the same way. Like, why would you go buy a smartphone without getting a data plan for it, right?
If we're using the automotive example, I think it could be something similar to the Department of Transportation. Now, there are certain things that if you want your vehicle to be road legal, you have to have windshield or some type of eye protection, right. Turn signals, maybe like approved tires. Like, I don't know if how there's approved tires that you can use on there. There's going to be approved propellers you have to have.
Yeah.
But does this go into like interstate travel eventually, where there's like drone gas stations? If you have something that, say I need something to deliver to you down in Atlanta, that I'll be able to have a drone, make a trip all the way down there, and it just, saves time,
I do think we will have a time where, again, like drones like Develop Air, Phantoms, Mavics, you can get a handful of miles, maybe a couple handfuls of miles, like a round trip sort of distance, especially doing any sort of like cargo package delivery. But I think over time, you'll be able to extend those trips through very experimental research driven at this time, is having drones fly along power lines and actually wirelessly charge as they're flying close enough to power lines. I've seen that before in research papers and research videos. And then also drones that will perch on power lines. And so I think a lot of the routing can be kind of hand in hand with infrastructure that we already have in the electrical system. And now you can extend, hey, it might be a multi-day mission that you're sending out your drone on, but it can still, over a series of flying close enough to those power lines, and keep flying, or, stops along the way, on the power lines, perch, continue another 10 miles, stop, continue another 10 miles, etc.
I mean, hey, we might already have that technology of people say spy pigeons and...
No, there's this guy, I don't know if you'd be as interested in this. I don't know if you'd be as interested in this. Let's see. Katsuki. I'm gonna have to pull up YouTube.
No, we're just thinking just more on the interstate travel thing. If you have almost it would be like a VTOL type system, and you needed something like that, you could probably, depending on what speeds are limited and everything like that, you can get something in a couple hours, and that's a whole new thing of same day delivery. Because if there's a really, yes, we have overnight delivery, but maybe there's something you need same day, and you can do a round trip, with the drone from here to Georgia in, maybe 6 hours. It'd be...
Well, and that's like a passenger drone travel. Of course, I want it first and foremost for the individual consumer. So if nothing else, if you live in a cul-de-sac, you would be able to like take off and land within the cul-de-sac, right? Mm-hmm. And ideally even be able to like fold it up and put it in like a standard garage. Now, again, over time, in the way that, you know, American homes don't always have garages built in, we'll have, you know, vertiports, or, you know, and again, it's not going to be for the everyday person. In the same way, the automobile, like, back in the early 1900s, some of them literally cost $100,000 of early 1900s money, right? Like, that's like buying a Bugatti or something like that today, right? Mm-hmm. You know, like, they weren't for everybody. But over time, you know, the $350,000 E-Hang 4 or 184, you know, in China, that's a 2-seater passenger drone, you know, probably be closer to $3 million if it was like made here in America or sold as an American product. But again, it's only a matter of time before that 350 becomes 300, or, you know, that 3 million becomes 300,000, and, you know, not necessarily to the point that everyone that, you know, could afford to buy a bicycle, you know, can buy one. But, you know, it's something like that you could look at as an American dream. Like, hey, I'm going to have a home, I'm going to have a passenger drone, and I'm going to be able to, you know, commute to work by and large, you know, avoiding road traffic, you know. I think that's kind of like the holy grail, like, of point A to B travel. But even public transportation services, I mean, to me, that seems like you could start offering more direct routes between Metro Atlanta and Metro Nashville, or you know, I'm sure there's a lot of other, like, from here to Detroit or here to Philadelphia, you know, a lot of these places that kind of sucks to drive, but, you know, definitely drivable even there and back in one day. But it doesn't make sense to fly unless you're flying private. And even sometimes then, it's like, by the time you drive to your local airport, even if you're flying private, and then, you know, flying to that destination that might be a 4-hour drive away, you maybe, save a couple hours if you're flying private, spending a fuck ton of money doing so, versus flying commercially, right? You're still going to spend 4 hours, you know, flying from Atlanta to Nashville, even though it's an hour flight, right?
Yep.
And that's where I think we can really start to have our country take off if we, like, invest in one, public transportation at the federal level, where we can start offering, you know, fuck high-speed trains or whatever. Let's take to the skies. We've proved that works here in America already, and offer, you know, these destinations between Charlotte, Atlanta, and then even allow, like, local municipalities, MARTA, like, why don't we have MARTA, you know, getting from people from Atlanta to Savannah, or Atlanta to Athens, or Atlanta to Macon, Atlanta to, you know.
I might be incorrect on this, but at least from my experience, first kind of starting off with public safety, you have the quadcopter or hexacopter, whatever, and that's more for hovering, being in the local area. Yep. And then if they need something a little more long range, or want to be up there for longer, when you need to cover more ground, you go to a fixed wing. But I mean, though, yep, exactly. But if you go to those locations, I feel like you know, planes and helicopters are a little bit more up that alley than having a quadcopter fly that distance. I mean, I think definitely, you know, around town, yes, but like when you're making that further distance, I don't see it. But I guess that's where you can go. VTOL system. Yeah.
And that's actually, you know, what we had originally started developing as our first drone, but like a scaled down version, modular drone, more personal assistant drone. And we're still working on a version of that, but, you know, without the, I mean, technically a quadcopter is VTOL, but not in the way that you and I understand it. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a lot of the exciting future that, you know, a lot of people either don't think about, or, oh yeah, that's just so far-fetched. And it's like, no, the technology is already there. It's being used a lot, to a lot further of a degree in places like China, or I haven't been to like Dubai or, you know, Abu Dhabi or anywhere like that, but I've heard they've even started offering some like smaller scale drone transportation services, or passenger drone transportation services. And that's something that I feel like America should be leading the front on, and like, or leading the charge on. I mean, it's like, to me, the equivalent of us not being at the forefront of the automotive or personal computer industries. And, you know, we're already a decade behind here in the drone industry. Really far behind. And I say, or I don't like to say it, but I think it's the truth. I hope we're just a decade behind and not a decade too late. Yeah, and again, I don't want to sound like super doom and gloom, but like if China were in like let's say 7 years, within the next 7 years, to like make the push to go invade mainland Taiwan, I don't know if there's anything that we could really do to stop that with their infrastructure. Like there's like, oh, we could send out like one of these Anduril drones to take out one of their drone factories, and it's like they already have hundreds of thousands of drones, millions of drones fielded, and they could much easier spin up a factory to start cranking up more than we could ever dream of in that same sort of time frame.
Yeah, no, I definitely is a scary thought. Yeah, we are definitely behind. I don't know if it's everyone steals technology from the other country.
Yeah.
So I feel like at a point we will be catched up, but
But it's not even the technology as much as literally just like the mass production, right? Like it's like we understand what makes DJI so great, and we can make one DJI drone, but again, at the price that they can make them, and even like DJI can't make them at the price that they sell them really to some degree. I mean, because the incentives that they get from the Chinese government, the subsidies that are put just across the electronics industry, where, our lawmakers, let's fucking subsidize corn, because we all need to make sure our Americans are fed with nothing but the best,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, come on, wake up, people. Like, again, not that we need to like produce every drone, every electronics product, every electric vehicle, but we need to at least have the ability to produce them at a scale that at least a good majority or a good portion of our population does depend on, right?
Yeah, and we'll be able to do it at scale. You need to have a good product for the right price, but I think, as the whole world is advancing and we can get more automation, and if we can have automation building these drones in the factory, that's less, people, because that's the thing where it comes down to is you have to have a highly skilled person,
right,
like in there to do the assembly and all that stuff, and that costs money.
Yeah,
and
that's about an $80,000 a year job here versus a $25,000 a year job over there, and they're willing to work a lot harder. The stereotypical 996 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week over there versus you're lucky, especially for $80,000, find someone that's willing to even put in a good 40 hours of solid work a week.
From someone that's I know within the drone industry, there's a lot of credibility behind him. Last year, he told me, I don't know if this is true or not. This is just all completely hearsay, that their head programmer or like the lead programmer for one of the Chinese drone companies that is not DJI, that their head programmer made $35,000 a year.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah,
it's like that's.
How do we compete, right? Like a partially rhetorical, but partially it's like I do think there is, again, something to be said about our entrepreneurial innovation sort of spirit where, maybe we're not going to build the best technology. It's certainly not the best flying camera drone, but we can build drones and then use them in ways that, China would never dare of letting their people, use them in the way that I talk about, right? And if we can start getting people to adopt them, and even though they're lesser quality drones for like the way that they're by and large used now, you don't need a super high quality camera for, using them as a personal delivery.
Yep. You
literally just, if not one front facing camera and a downward facing camera, a basic gimbaled camera that you can like, hey, all right, the landing zone is clear. I'm being notified that my drone's coming down for landing. Let me just make sure I don't have to slightly adjust the position or it's not coming down on something or someone it's not supposed to, right? Like that's where I feel like we could really catch up and even take the lead. But there's also a big, like, who's willing to back that? And again, especially right now, that's illegal in the way that, we're building drones and wanting to sell them.
Yeah, I mean, how do you get that change? Or do you get it from the FAA, or do you have to go and have a situation and it has to go to court?
I think it's all of it. It's like having conversations with you and just people that are in the industry, people that like I've never even thought about why they would want to own a drone and like why it would need to be internet connected, and again, just haven't thought about these concepts because they're not in the drone world like you and I are. But then also taking that to the Congress people, right, and getting the legislators, and it's all of it, right? And then of course, just as if not more importantly, like talking about it is easy, but then actually to your point, making a good product that then can actually be sold and delivered at scale, right? And again, maybe not with the best gimbal cameras and all the bells and whistles that the Chinese drones have, but enough to actually be used in the purpose that we're talking about as far as a personal assistant drone, predominantly built around deliveries, but could also be used for imaging jobs or watering your garden, fertilizing your yard, having your kids play games with, right?
I mean, I definitely see it can definitely become, because look at all the other personal robots people have at their houses, Roombas or the lawnmowers that will go.
The key is making it general purpose, like a computer, though.
Yeah, I think it's on the right track, but it's going to take time.
Yeah, right.
Anything does. When anything comes out, like Crocs, when they first came out, people were like, who would want to wear Crocs? And now everybody has Crocs.
I don't have Crocs anymore.
I don't have Crocs.
Yeah, anymore. Yeah. But, that's where I look at it. People say, hey, how long out are we till we have this ideal of the future that you have? It's like, well, we're already in it partially now, right? Again, it's like there's already 2 million people, in the United States, roughly speaking, that have a drone, and at least half of them are just purely recreational. Like and all it does is take photos and videos, right? And if you kind of equate that to the PC industry, it wasn't until COVID until you got like the last wave of adopters of like using a computer on a day-to-day basis, because like now I gotta do Zoom calls or whatever, and before I could just get by with like having an assistant or secretary or maybe here and there using a computer like once a week or hopping on my phone or whatever. But it's 5 decades, I would say, before like, and from now maybe 4 decades, 4 decades before like we really see it at the level that people use cars and computers today. But as we know, there's still like a lot of opportunity in the 80s, 90s, late 70s, early 2000s for the computer industry, make billions of dollars, and not that's all, but like provide value to a lot of people, right, at a mass market scale, right? It's not like it's all of a sudden gonna go from where we are now to like overnight everyone is just going to be using drones 5 decades later, right? It's like we're just in the innovator early adopter
infancy
stage
now.
Right.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about the other day was, I'm like, how did businesses survive without computers? Getting into business, there's always been computers around.
That's the case with drones.
And everywhere you look with businesses, there's computers everywhere. And there'll be a period of time when there's young people like us and be like, how did people like live without drones?
Yeah. Wait, you actually have to go out to the store yourself? Or wait, you could call someone else to go to the store for you and then bring you your, like, that sounds like slavery to me, right?
Yeah. Well, at that point, does that get rid of storefronts and like, the use of a warehouse?
I hope it will equalize the playing field. My hope is like, right now, the companies like Amazon or Walmart are the only ones able to offer, same day sort of deliveries. But now the everyday mom and pop, you just have 1-2 parking spaces, and now you can offer deliveries to your customers because they're sending their own drone to do the delivery.
But also, if you can do that in so many different aspects of like Facebook Marketplace going
right.
to
I don't have to go meet with the person. Yeah, right.
There'll be all the safety on there, but there's also the the wall. If you look, you add all this technology of it, and the human person kind of becomes a lazy person, and like you don't have that human interaction. That's, I feel like, another big thing.
Well, I use Wally as an example, not the world like, and I hope like not as like the destructive,
yep.
like we're all up in space, but I do think about like how I'm building iView as like, where are we heading to, like skate where the puck is going, so to speak. And it's people want to either work from home or more often than not work from home, right? And have everything brought to them and just be glued in front of some screen consuming media content, right? And it's like, how can we build a business around that? And again, not what I want. I love going out, coming out to your shop and like going out and experiencing the world. But I do think drones do allow you to experience the world more, right? Make it more accessible, either through getting goods that you wouldn't have otherwise access to remotely or just more conveniently, getting access to information that you wouldn't otherwise have access to, or again, remotely more conveniently, and ultimately getting you from point A to point B, you know. But ultimately, a lot of people are going to use that as an enabler to just stay at home and, you know, live this sort of Wall-E sort of lifestyle.
No, most definitely. But there's also some...
The future's exciting, isn't it?
Big Brother's always watching. No.
Well, and that's, again, to me, right now, the drone industry is being built up into the Big Brother, like, flock safety and, like, all these, like, hey, you know, we're going to consolidate all the power of drones into law enforcement agencies and government agencies, big corporations, whereas, like, let's get drones out to the power of the people, because we're never going to take away the access of this Big Brother information from the organizations that already have it, but we can equalize the playing field and give everyone else that same access to information. And the reality is, most people don't give a fuck about your life, my life, Brian's life. They got their own lives to worry about. And so it's like, just because you have access to all this information, most people are going to do jack shit with it as they do now.
No, 100%.
While we brought Brian up and we're talking about distribution of information, it was actually in northern England, not the Grand Canyon.
Okay, yeah, fucking fake news, Brian delivering the fake news.
I've been waiting for such an opportunity to bring that up, but...
And now, I guess, kind of totally shifting gears, and then we can wrap it up, bring it home. What you thought about Charlie Kirk? You, I'm sure, familiar to some degree, and yeah.
Definitely was unfortunate. One thing I heard about, kind of speaking within the drone side of things, if there was a DFR program set up, there's a really, really good chance they would have been able to find the shooter. Yeah. Or if there was
Butler,
or if they even had drones for surveillance. There's plenty of departments. We've even helped out with running drone surveillance for security side of things. We've helped out with Cleveland PD and the Cleveland Marathon they have every year, and they had somewhere around 12 to 15 drones deployed at different points, just looking for, you know, the possibility of a threat. And also people don't like it, but other thing is, you know, if it saves one, or if it can save one life, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Unfortunate something like that, you know, happen, but drones can definitely be useful in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, same with Butler, PA. You know, I was talking with, you know, some of my advisors and, you know, a lot of people like that. Hey, yeah, why weren't they using drones? You know, and I think they even had mentioned that the kid, like Thomas Matthew Crook or whatever, like he had like used a drone to like scout it out, you know, earlier in the day. It was like, man, and that even goes kind of back to the Ukraine-Russia like RG pilot drone, like using the Russian 4G LTE network with open source RG pilot or mission planner software and RG pilot drones. And on one hand, love seeing the technology used and getting some more, you know, visibility. On the other hand, not necessarily in that way, but it does also send the wake-up call that we needed, especially our leadership, our military leadership needed in this country. Like, that could have happened to any of our military bases across the country, and there wouldn't have been a fucking thing we could have done to stop it.
Yeah, no. Well, speaking back on the Charlie Kirk's situation, actually, personally, at least me, I talked with two different people today. One was a police department, one actually was a school interested in DFR programs. I don't know if it sparked from the news or whatever they ever were thinking, but that's just me myself. I don't even know if any of the other sales guys or anyone else, you know, had those. Those are just from prior contacts that I've had and I've worked with, and they're just from my, you know, long-time customers, and I still try to provide the support to them, even if I am a very busy person and I can't always provide the best support.
Now, I keep saying one more thing. Have you heard of Axon?
Yes.
Okay. What did you think about the whole like Uvalde shooting where they wanted to come in and like bring in taser drones to schools? Is that something that you've thought about, or what you think about that? Or
so the whole drones in the school, Definitely think that could be a really cool concept, a really good idea. I think there's a company, I don't know if it is Axon that's already kind of pushing for that, but after that situation, it was kind of when I was talking more interior drones, police will be able to go and bring an interior drone in for something like that. And a lot of the feedback we've gotten from a lot of local law enforcement is that if I have to go and get on scene and throw a drone in, I shouldn't be in law enforcement. A lot of people I've talked with, they're going.
Good on them.
They hop out of their car, they grab their rifle, and they're going straight into to take care of the situation. Yeah. But if there is a system built in, I definitely think it could be a very good idea. But I feel like that has to be very regulated and very locked down, encrypted, secure. Because what if somebody goes and hacks into the system and deploys the 50 drones that are in the school? And it's during school time, and it's going after
Terminator style, yeah.
Exactly. Right. It's I don't think it could be a lethal force. I think there's always that liability there, but it's an interesting concept. But it's really sad that something like this has to be invented.
Yeah, there's a problem requiring this sort of solution.
Yeah, and I think there's solutions to the initial problem.
Yeah, right, and. Really, here we are going from drones to solving the world's issues. To me, lucky. I think you're the same vein. Like, have great parents. I've never met your, but that's what the world needs more of, right? People that want to be parents and actually commit to their children, and that's. I think what almost every problem can be traced back to. And now, given there's people that have great parents and they still choose to, fuck up their lives and fuck up other people's lives, but it's go from a single family or single mother, sort of upbringing, and again, not to say that there's not exceptions there, and single moms can't be great, but. Or any sort of strong male role model in a kid's life. You get all the parents that want to be their kids' best friends, and the whole trans acceptance and all that, and I don't know. That's obviously a very broad stroke to brush, but I think that may be somewhat of what you're getting at. It's not just a gun problem, right? It's not the guns that are committing crime. It's clearly kids that have, or people.
Or drones. It's another tool in the toolbox. Right. It's not going to solve every problem. A good friend of mine has a really nice boat, and they're having an issue with the lifting deck. I mean, this is a 50 or 60 foot boat, or if you want to call it yacht. Something the back swim platform was having an issue with the deck raising and lowering, and he was like, "Hey, do you think you can fly a drone a couple feet off the water as the boat's moving and try to film so I can send it to the manufacturer?" I'm like, yeah, I could. There's a chance I'm going to lose the drone, but I can think of a bunch of other solutions. Mount a GoPro under there,
right?
And see if it records, or get on a jet ski and have somebody on the back with a phone recording it. Drones won't solve every problem.
That's all, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's use the drones to solve the problems that that will be beneficial, but
right.
If there's other problems that are out there, they can be solved with better use cases.
Yeah, convenience and saving lives, and the saving lives one. That's another aspect of. I agree with you on the police or the one officer. Well, I at least commend him for his approach. I'm assuming him. Wow, Jacob's a bigot. Women can be police officers too, but I bet I'm right. Yeah. But in any case. As much as that's you're signing up to serve and protect. At the end of the day, they're people that oftentimes have a wife or a significant other and children that they want to get home to. And if you could send in a drone to neutralize or apprehend a subject, or even get a better position, so you could actually then go and manage the neutralize the subject without putting yourself in harm's way or as much harm's way, that seems like a great outcome to me, right? I had some people push back we don't want the law enforcement with this sort of militarized technology, and it's that's not the right approach. It's give the law enforcement the technology, give the military the technology, but don't let it be at the expense of the everyday person, right?
Well, I know I have another business. It's a spin-off business off the drone, AuHu drone repair, called Revere Tactical Technologies, where we make custom Kydex holsters that will fit either the Avata 1, Avata 2, which we outfit to be interior drones. And we definitely have footage and photos of them actually being used on SWAT teams when they're going into a barricaded subject or a situation like that. Just being able to bring the resources and everything like that, can be useful in those situations.
Yeah.
It's all about how much time they have and all that side. And each situation or scenario is, different to the next.
Yeah, I talked about this at a recent presentation I gave, but there was an instance of a helicopter going to save someone off a helicopter with a helicopter pilot, of course, going to save someone off the side of a cliff. And, rotor got too close to a cliff or a tree hanging off the cliff or whatever, killed the helicopter pilot as well as the person that they're trying to save. And it's like, if you could have like a passenger drone autonomous, you might still kill the person that you're trying to save, but that's better than also unnecessarily killing the pilot, right?
Yeah.
And
well, a month ago I saw footage on social media. I don't know what country it was in, but something either towards Asia or something like that. There was a big flood, and there was these two kids in a river, and they used an agriculture drone, like with a rope or something like that, flew it over and pulled them out. Right now, if you pick somebody up with a drone, like that's like a huge offense.
Yeah.
But they're used in so many different situations.
Yeah, and that actually kind of sparks me to think about like Hurricane Harvey, which was like out in Houston, 2017, something along maybe 2019. And why not have drones that could like fly over and detect all the live electrical wires still in the water? Because there's first responders that were getting out to go save people, dying, getting electrocuted, and it's like that's something that easily a drone, like especially like with our sort of software, like map out the area anywhere that it detects electricity within that area, drops a pin on the map, and like maybe sets a radius like, hey, and it could send out like an Amber Alert sort of notification. Anyone that has cellular communications or wireless communications available to them, they're notified, hey, don't get off your rooftop, don't get off your like life raft or whatever. There's live electrical wires still in the water.
Oh, did you see the drones used in, I want to say it's Hurricane Milton, but I might be wrong with it, down in North Carolina and Tennessee, when they had the last summer, fall time, they had all the big storm came through, washed out all the roads and everything. People are stranded.
I think Helene, maybe Hurricane. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one.
We actually had one of our developers being used for some of those disaster relief efforts. One that we sold with a thermal camera, and they went and did some like mapping work for FEMA, and then I think NCDOT. Yeah, NCDOT.
I was actually going to go down there for it, but just how my timing worked, the shop was very busy, and I had a. I actually got sworn in at a fire department at the same time to help with their drone program. But I had quite a few drones. I had like 2 Starlinks. I had a bunch of technology shipped out there, or shipped to people who went out there. But I actually was going to go out there and operate and help them. But it unfortunately didn't work out with my schedule.
Yeah. It's amazing to see how they're already being used, but it's cliche, but just the tip of the iceberg for how they will come to be used, or how they at the very least could be used, right? Just more creative people, driving the ball forward. But don't want to take up too much of your time. I appreciate you coming back to the shop and doing this with me. But where can people connect with you? How do you want people to connect with you? What do you want people to know?
Yeah, easiest way, reaching out for our company, phone or email, anything that we have on our website or social medias, we'll be able to get back to you as soon as possible. Our main office phone is actually cell phones. You're able to text it. That is 440-420-0200. Or if you call our office line or our shop tech line, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you should be getting somebody at the other line. If we don't answer, we'll get right back to you. I just don't want to have a whole, automated system or anything. You're always gonna get a person on the other end. Trying to personally reach out to me, either send out.
Don't no. Yeah.
No, you send something out to one of either call into the shop and ask for me, and one of the guys can take a message if I'm not available, or just reach out to our normal email and just direct it to me, and I monitor it sometimes, or some of the guys will push out the emails to me directly for me to see.
Yeah. And if you know me, maybe reach out to me and I could put you in touch, but I might charge you for it. Cool. Well, Roger, thank you again. Pleasure.
No, pleasure.